Hey, what's up guys? This is Nightwing2303 from WearTesters.com. Today we have the performance review on the Nike Kobe 10. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. My initial reaction to this traction, plain and simple, was that I hated it. It just didn't look like it was going to perform. But once again, this usually happens when I do visually hate a traction pattern. It ended up working perfectly fine. These little nodules grip the hell out of the floor no matter what the court condition was. My very first time playing in these, the court was actually full of dirt. I tried to clean it up as best as I could, but there was like a high school band playing, and whatever they brought in from the outside was all over the floor. So I was trying to dry mop it as quickly as possible. Didn't work out too well. So long story short, everybody on the court was slipping except for me. I think only wiped like a handful of times, and other than that, I just kind of played throughout. And these guys did their job and kept me to the ground. Now, it's not just the pattern itself. I believe it's a mixture between the pattern and the compound, or the rubber compound used. Both of those things work in tandem with one another. Without one, the other wouldn't work as well. Now, will these things last outdoors? Unfortunately not. You can already see that they're pretty thin. It's very pliable, it's very soft, and if you play in these outdoors, it's going to grind down pretty quickly. However, outdoor hoopers have plenty of options, and there's some much cheaper options as well. The KB Mentality is available for those who want Lunarlon, and there's always the Phenomenon series for those of you who want Zoom. Personally, I don't see the point in spending $180 to $200 on a shoe that you're going to play in and trash outdoors, but you know, if that's your thing, then you know, have at it. But there are definitely either clearance options or cheaper retail options that you can use that are going to be a lot more durable and worthwhile outdoors. I already know I'm going to get a slew of questions asking which one's better, the Kobe 9 traction or the Kobe 10, and I'm just going to be perfectly honest here. It's not about what works better, it's about what works, and both of these setups work, and they work extremely well. So you can't go wrong with these guys whatsoever, and you can't go wrong with these guys either. So if you pick one or the other, you're going to be fine from a traction standpoint. Don't think too hard into it. If the traction works, you're good to go. Now for cushion, we have full-length Lunar and a large volume heel air unit, both of which provide you with a low profile responsive ride. Now, as you guys know, everything is caged within these two rubber sidewalls. They're two separate components, so there's one piece and then there's a second piece, which makes it a little bit more flexible, but it's not anything crazy. And with that cage setup, it really does make the Zoom, in my opinion at least, feel a little bit lackluster. It doesn't feel the way that a large volume Zoom unit has felt before in the past with, say, like the Mellow M8s, even with a full-length setup like the Air Jordan 12, or even Met bags, which were used in the Kobe 5 and the Kobe 6. Now, while you can't necessarily feel it, it does do its job. It absorbs impact just fine, it deflects energy just a little bit. I just didn't feel it the way that, you know, you normally would, especially with it being so large like this. However, I did love the Lunarlon. It's not anything crazy when you first try them on. It's something that you actually have to play in to kind of almost break it in. It's definitely not as plush as the Kobe 8 or the Kobe 9, but it definitely gets the job done. Now, for those of you asking why there is this cage in place, basically it's just for stability. Is it restrictive? A little bit. It's not too much, but you can still tell that these are not quite as flexible as, say, the Kobe 8 or the Kobe 9. But this setup is beneficial for an aging player, and I should know I'm not getting any younger here, so this is definitely a good look for someone like myself. But if you're smaller, or maybe even just younger, quicker, and you want just a little bit more explosiveness within your movements, you're definitely going to want something just a tiny bit more flexible than something like this. And even with all of the little segmented flex screws within the midsole, it is still encased within plastic and rubber, so it's not extremely flexible. It would have been better if this was no cage, and then the Lunar was inside of a Phylon midsole with all of the little cuts, the little Nike Free things, and then the outsole was glued onto that, and the outsole had those similar cuts in there. That would have given you stability and plenty of flexibility or range of motion. Now, the materials are pretty much the one thing that greatly disappointed me, especially coming off of the 8's engineered mesh and then the 9, which had engineered mesh, as well as a Flyknit option. And pretty much what you have here is a thin fuse upper with textile mesh glued on top of it. That's what this guy will give you, and then the All-Star colorway gives you the same exact thing, but they add a little bit extra fuse along the top of the mesh for this kind of medial panel, which isn't exactly durable. This stuff I don't know if it was meant to do this or not, but it's just peeling and cracking all over the place. And on my right shoe, there's just sections of it where it's just completely gone, and it's still getting chewed off the more that I play in them. So if you're looking for a pair that's going to stay aesthetically pleasing throughout your time playing in them on court, I'd go with the pair that is not the All-Star colorway, and it's also going to save you 20 bucks. The mesh doesn't really serve a performance purpose, which is probably the most irritating point about this. They could have just gone with a full-on fuse, but instead they used this mesh for basically aesthetic purposes, which is cool because it looks nice, but again, it's not really a performance feature. It almost gives you that kind of like, oh man, I'm gonna get a nice mesh shoe, and then they trick you because it's all fuse in there. So there are some positive and negatives to having an upper like this. The positives: this type of material will offer you a little bit more support than a softer material would, like a fly knit or an engineered mesh. And then the negatives is that it requires a little bit of break-in time, not too much, but it does require just a tiny bit of break-in time. And even after ample break-in time, the fuse up here right at the toe area flexes just a little bit awkwardly. So while you're in motion, making cuts, moves, just changing in direction overall, you're gonna have a slight disconnect between the foot and the materials on the upper, something that you don't really get with a softer material or a broken in leather. As far as their fit is concerned, I would just go true to size. They fit perfectly like a glove for me. They are a little bit on the narrow side right up at the front here. So if you are a wide footer, definitely try these on in store if possible. So like I mentioned earlier, the upper, even after ample break-in time, just kind of flexes a little awkwardly right around this area. Creates a little bit of a disconnect between your foot and the shoe itself. It wasn't something that was a huge issue, but it is an issue that was present for, you know, some of the playing time that I experienced. And when that disconnect kind of occurred, it was noticeable for me. My foot slipped inside the shoe when it should be like a 1-to-1 fit. Lockdown from the midfoot back though was absolutely perfect. No complaints, no slippage. It contained the foot perfectly the way that it's supposed to. Something that I think would have benefited the Kobe is if they would have used a neoprene toe the way that the Kyries do. That would have made for a much more flexible ride. These guys here feature pretty much the same exact materials as the Kobe's, but this is just straight up fused from heel to toe, whereas these start fused basically right here and then go all the way back, and then the rest of this is a soft neoprene upper like this stuff right here. It gives it just a little bit extra flexibility. It feels a lot nicer on foot, and it would have most likely flex a little bit better with these guys here with your foot. Now in terms of support, this is probably the most supportive Kobe that we've had, especially since the low top era. Now it's not overly supportive in certain features like having a midfoot carbon fiber shank, which is obviously not apparent here, but it's more from a stability standpoint with this caged midsole setup, and then they've widened the thing out quite a bit, so you're sitting in a nice flat stable base, which is really awesome for stability. The cage also takes care of torsional support similar to the shank plate. This just happens to run full length instead of just sitting right here. And then like I was saying earlier, the materials, even though I don't personally like them, they do offer just a little bit more support than a softer material would, and then there is also a built-in heel counter which works perfectly fine. So other than that, the midsole is lower, it's wider, and the TPU cage is there for additional support and stability, something that I personally did enjoy. So overall, the Nike Kobe 10, definitely a solid shoe, especially if your body is beginning to age a little bit, you need a little bit more stability or support. Despite how it looks, the traction was awesome. Cushion was pretty solid. Materials, it's definitely something that I don't personally enjoy, but there are definitely people out there that are going to enjoy a little bit more support from the fuse. Some people love fuse, some people hate it. So if you absolutely love it, this might be a great option for you. They do fit like a glove throughout most of the shoe. Like I said earlier, there's some slight forefoot issues with flex, but it's not like a huge issue. It's just something that happens once in a while. And then of course, stability is their key feature, which I think was awesome. Are these things a must-have? Honestly, not really. No shoe is a must-have. And if we're being completely honest here, you'll be able to get by just fine with a $50 clearance shoe, the same that you would with a $180 to $200 shoe. I mean, let's just face facts here. You want the newest signature model because it is the newest signature model. Would you want these guys if they were called the Stutter Step 3s? I don't think so. And don't lie. Now, if you have 180 bucks to spend and you want the latest Kobe shoe for on-court use, off-court use, whatever it might be, you're gonna get some really good performance features out of the shoe. Just don't sit there and complain like, oh man, I'm spending $180 for this, when you can buy something just as good with, say, the Kobe Mentality for 100 bucks. You can find the Hyperdunks on clearance, and whatever else might have a swoosh on it that you can find at your local Nike outlet. Don't act like the brand is forcing you to buy the shoe, because that's just not the case. Buying a specific shoe is your choice. It's not an ultimatum. That pretty much takes care of everything. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for all your support. Stay tuned for the performance scores if you have any questions on those. There's going to be a link in the description box below explaining what they all mean. And if you got the Kobe 10 and you've been playing in it, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think of them. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time guys, have a good one.